I'm looking forward to having NBA analyst Chris Broussard chime in on this block because I'm coming for blood. But Marcellus,
yes,
you up first. Would anything less than a title be a disappointment for the Nets?
No, it wouldn't be a disappointment for the Nets. I want to keep things in perspective. First, let's properly define what disappointment is. It's the gap between expectations and reality, where this team will fall. What are the expectations? Are you expecting them truly to go out there and win it all this year, or are you hoping for them to go out there and win it all this year? I think they're going to come out the East, but to win it all, I will fall short of making that declaration. So that's part one. Part two is, let's just be real about this. I think we're all standing on this premise of championship or bust based on what we see in their talent level. Must I remind people that when we saw the Big Three go to Miami in their first year, they didn't win it all in year one? Must I remind people that when I saw LeBron James come to the Los Angeles Lakers in year one, he didn't win it all? Matter of fact, he didn't even go to the playoffs. Must I remind you that Kobe, going back, respect, rest in peace. Yeah, look at your face, Chris Broussard. Fix it. And you go back to Kobe Bryant and his first year when he had to go against the Big Three, they didn't win it all, but then he went back to back. Point being is you don't have to win it in year one, even though people see the talent level that can contend for that same championship. So if you guys are going to push back on this, trust me, I got 2 pages of notes to come back with some more conviction.
I ain't pushing back. I'm bringing a whole trailer back at you, big dog.
Oh.
Yes. It would be a huge, gigantic disappointment if the Brooklyn Nets did not win the title this year. And why would it be a disappointment?
Why?
Because you said it yourself. Expectations minus reality equals disappointment.
Oh.
The expectation is for the Nets to win a chip.
Oh.
Why is the expectation for the Nets to win a chip?
Yeah.
Because they have 2 former MVPs within the last 7 years on their squad, at the age of 32 and under. Mind you, Steph Curry, who's 33, just won a scoring title, so we know you can play the game of basketball at a high level above the age of 32. With that being said, Marcellus Wiley, when the Heat didn't win the title their first year, that was a disappointment. When the Clippers didn't even make it to the finals last year, that was a disappointment. When LeBron James got hurt his first year in LA, that was a disappointment. All of these things you speak of are, in fact, disappointments. So how can you put Kevin Durant, your king, the best player in the NBA, plus James Harden, the best scorer of this generation, plus Kyrie Irving, maybe the most skilled player to ever touch a basketball, on the same team, and it not be considered a disappointment? For it not to be considered a disappointment if the Nets were to lose the title or not even make it is an indictment on superstar Kevin Durant. It is an indictment on Kevin Durant and his greatness if we were to say it is not a disappointment if the Nets lose a title. Why is it an indictment on Kevin Durant's greatness? Because statistically, or just with the eyeball test, Kevin Durant had significantly more help from his duo than LeBron James had from his duo with the Heat. Bring up the full screen as I talk it through, please.
Ooh, my dog.
James Harden and Kyrie Irving have significantly more points per game than Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh have. James Harden and Kyrie Irving actually have more rebounds per game than Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh have. James Harden and Kyrie Irving have significantly more assists per game, significantly, than Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh have. So if we want to make the equivalency that Kevin Durant is currently as great as LeBron James, which I have to hear you make far too often on this set.
Okay.
If we want to make that equivalency, if Kevin Durant is better and Kevin Durant gets more help, and it was a disappointment when LeBron didn't win, then Marcellus, don't do this. Don't tell me it's not a disappointment if the Nets don't win.
Hey, CB, hold this for a second. Let me handle this business, homie. I'm coming to you, CB, in a second. You're trying to tell me right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Yeah, I got to cut you now. You're trying to tell me that the defending champs don't have the expectation to win it all, but a team in its first year gelling together has that same expectation. Make that make sense. You can't. You want to tell me right now that a team with the second best record in the Eastern Conference and 4th best record overall is supposed to win it all, but then the defending champs don't even have that same onus on their heads. Interesting right there. Let's talk about why they don't have to win it all this year and still can go out there and be dynastic. This is what you don't understand. Let's go back to the San Antonio Spurs. Remember them? Yeah, boring. People say that, but they kept winning titles and titles and titles. Let's go back to 2003 through 2007, where they won 3 of the 5 titles in that era. Then went 7 years just being good to great, not winning one again, and then, 2014 Heat. Here's another one for you. Point being, it doesn't have to happen instantaneously. It doesn't have to happen overnight. It doesn't have to happen in year one. That's all I'm saying. That said, this team is going to be dynastic, whether it happens this year or going forward.
All right, let me try to settle this debate. And I think both of you guys are on the extremes. I'm somewhere in between you guys. Obviously, Marcellus, it would be a disappointment if they don't win the championship. And, yeah, some people are picking the Lakers. A couple are picking Philadelphia, maybe the Clippers. But there are a lot of people, including a lot of ex-NBA players that I've seen on television, that you've seen on television, who are saying they expect Brooklyn to win it all. I've talked to people in the NBA who think in this era of offense, where it's not as much about defense as it used to be, it's about offense that Brooklyn's got too much. So a lot of people are expecting them to win the championship. So it would definitely be a disappointment. To me, the debate is this. Is it a failure? Is it a failure if they don't win the championship?
Talk that talk, CB. Where you
and
at?
To that, I'm going to say it is not a failure if they don't win the championship. Definitely a disappointment, but not a failure. They do have things working against them, guys. They are attempting, as much as I like them, they are attempting to do something no other team in NBA history has ever done. And that is to win a championship with your 3 stars, really 3 superstars, playing 8 games together. 8 games. And you guys know this. It is harder to bring stars together or superstars together than it is role players. Because superstars are used to being the man. And when superstars link up with 2 other superstars, now everybody has to step back a little bit, defer a little bit, play a little differently than normal. And so it's tough to bring superstars together, right? It takes a little time. So 8 games generally isn't enough time. So because of that, they have, I won't even say a built-in excuse, but that would be a legitimate explanation if they don't win the championship. Now, you can use that same logic for if they lose to Milwaukee or if they lose to Philadelphia in the East, but they got too much talent for that. They do. Acho, you talked about it. 2 MVPs, all that, 2 guys who've already won championships. So I'm not going to give them that much rope. So I'm going to say it's a failure if they don't win the East. It's a failure if they don't at least get to the finals. And then if they lose to LeBron and AD, I won't say it's a failure, but it'll be a huge disappointment. And then, like Marcellus said, next year they can come back and win it.
CB, a wise man once stole a quote from a wiser man who said, don't lean up against the wall and then complain that your back is up against the wall. Chris Broussard, you said they're attempting to do something that's never been done. The big 3 only playing 8 games. Whose fault is that? It ain't my fault. It ain't your fault.
Did I do
It
that?
ain't my dog Marcellus's fault. It's not my
fault.
fault Kyrie Irving needs a break every time a black person calls him an N-word.
Man, come on.
It's not my fault James Harden comes back prematurely from a hamstring to re-injure his hamstring. It's not my fault Kevin Durant can't play more than 6 games in a row, even though he didn't play for a whole season because he was recovering from an Achilles. It's not my fault. So don't complain, not you, but the Nets can't complain about a problem that they put themselves in. Man, you gonna complain that you late to work, but you woke up late? Huh? Like, you didn't set the alarm. Get up, and you'll be on time.
But injuries are legit.
Yeah, thank you.
Injuries are legit.
Injuries?
But here's what's not legit. Here's what's not legit, CB, and you know this, I know this, Sel knows this. It's your fault if you rush back prematurely from a hamstring injury and get hurt not even in a game play, and therefore you have to miss another month. A hamstring injury in the game of basketball should not take you 6 to 8 weeks to recover from unless you rip it completely off the bone. And James Harden does not run fast enough on the court to completely rip his hamstring off the bone. Let's be real. So, yes, injuries are a serious matter, but we have to speak in context of the injuries. But the biggest thing for me is simply this. It might be a failure, CB, because remember what LeBron said after losing to the Mavericks in 11. He came back and said, if we were to lose again, I knew that Pat Riley was going to break us up. So if the Nets mess around and lose right now, we can, at least you and I can agree it's a disappointment. They are finally flirting with failure. Because if you put all 3 of them dogs together, who, let the majority of sports personalities tell them, Kevin Durant at this age, plus Kyrie at this age, plus James Harden at this age, is a greater trio than that LeBron plus that D-Wade plus Chris Bosh. You can look at the stats if you don't want to look at your own eyeballs. That is a greater trio. And we knew for certain it was a disappointment when they failed. If you want to say it's not a disappointment when the Nets fail or a failure, it's an indictment on KD's greatness. Then just completely remove him from the conversation as the greatest basketball player right now playing the game. Remove James Harden from the conversation of the greatest scorer. Remove Kyrie Irving from the conversation of the most skilled player to touch a basketball maybe. And then I'm good. And then we can all proceed happily and we can all go sing Kumbaya and whatnot.
Well, Miami was certainly, it was beyond a disappointment. It was a failure when they lost it in their first year because they, unlike the Nets, they did have a whole season together, right, to work it out. Here's the advantage, though, that the Nets have over that Miami team. Like, I agree with you. Their trio is better, all right? But the Nets trio also fits together better. That Miami trio wasn't the greatest fit because LeBron and D-Wade had similar games. They both were used to dominating the basketball, and neither was a great outside shooter. So a lot of times that first year, it was my turn, your turn. You do your thing, I'll stand back and watch. It wasn't until D-Wade said, you know what, I'm going to have to play differently because we got to let LeBron be LeBron. That's when they went ahead and won 2 in a row. With the Nets, you don't have to do that because all 3 of these dudes can shoot. They can catch and shoot. So LeBron and D-Wade couldn't catch and shoot, but these 3 can catch and shoot. And Harden, as an elite facilitator, is huge. So I agree with you on that. Like, they fit together better than Miami's big 3, which is what gives me confidence that they can go ahead and win the championship this year. But I got to say this, man, before we go. Look, you guys know you want your picks to be right. So I'm pulling for the Nets because I picked them. I wanted them to win it. But I don't know if it's a good thing for the NBA if they win it. It's probably a bad thing for the NBA. Because if you can just drop 3 dudes together for 8 games, and then they can go through the playoffs and beat everybody, that is like Rick Bucher, Slick Rick said it yesterday, it would be the AAU-ification of the NBA. And it's been going that way for years.
Yes.
But, I mean, if I could just drop cats together for a weekend and they can beat everybody in the tournament, that don't look like professional basketball. But I think they're so talented they can actually do it.
Yeah, I'm with you, CB. From hello, I saw this team come together, and I said they're going to come out the East. But I didn't also say that they're going to win it all. And I also am not going to be disappointed if they don't win it all because they're oven baking this versus microwaving this. Like you said, it doesn't have to happen after only 8 games played together and you win a championship. Part of me hopes that it doesn't happen that fast, that easily. But Acho, I need to see you on screen right here because when I see the word disappointment, and once again, I'm going to define it, the gap between expectations and reality. When did you make this appointment that this team was a championship team? Because I remember day one. Day one, you're like, no way, no how.
I don't think they are.
What?
I don't think they are.
Oh,
You
okay.
think they are.
Okay, so if they don't win it all for you, it's not a disappointment because it's going as expected.
Fair.
Right? Fair. So, good. Because day one, no one really was on this wagon. I kept hearing defense. Who's going to play defense? Where's the rim protector? And I was like, oh, I don't give a damn. Look at the scoreboard. And now, today, after only 8 games played together, they're now the favorites to win it all. They're now the team to beat. That doesn't add up right there because those 8 games shouldn't be enough for you to say they're going to beat the defending champs. They're going to go out there and beat a better squad in totality of the Clippers, et cetera. So I don't know where this appointment came from that they have to win it all despite that they are the favorites. And I also don't know where the disappointment will come from if it just takes them 1 year to gel together.